What does it mean to say, I am? Is consciousness an accident of biology? Or is it the fabric of the universe? On Spinning the Light, we bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern inquiry. We're stripping away the illusions of the ego to find the radiant core of human existence. Join us, your hosts, Christy and Sharon, as we unravel the mysteries of the mind and illuminate the true nature of being. This is Spinning the Light.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, welcome, everybody. It's been kind of a busy day, so we're actually recording in between sessions of mine, so we're going to do our best. Invite you in on a conversation, because we were having a great conversation this morning.
Mm-hmm. Well, even actually, since after our last episode, we were talking about teaching our children the importance of maintaining our relationship to Source.
Yes, and that curiosity that we should all be having about many, many things across so many different topics.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump right in.
We're only beginning to understand the true nature of our reality and our relationship to it. The bringing together of spirituality and science is key in helping us to create new ways of thinking about our abilities and how we have power in reconstructing society through a very different lens, one that promotes healing and heart coherence.
When we talk about this, so much of the time when you hear and you talk to people is science. There has to be facts, there has to be studies, there has to be all of these things. And how many times people will say, oh, I didn't believe in any of that until it happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm a believer of whatever that is. It could be of science or it could be of spirituality or whatever. But, when we were reading I want to say the Map of Heaven, but that's actually the second book.
Which one are you talking? The Proof of Heaven?
The Proof of Heaven, which is the first one. And it's written by Dr. Eben Alexander. How fun. And two first names. I love those. Anyway, that's a little side note there. But, he was talking about this. He's a neurosurgeon.
Mm-hmm.
And so very science oriented. I know the neuroscience of the brain. I'm a neurosurgeon. I know.
Yeah.
Very confident in I know. And people would often come to him and say, oh, I had this experience. No, you didn't. What was really happening is the brain was doing this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So the person walks away thinking, oh, okay, whatever. But he has this experience. He becomes ill. I don't want to tell you the book, so if you guys want to read it, it's really a great book. But he becomes ill, and his brain stops functioning. And he has this experience.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody comes out. He's now questions everything he thought he knew, because he knew science. And he knew the brain, and he knew what it was doing. But then when he goes to talk to his colleagues about this experience he has, they're like, no, you know what happened? This is what was happening with the brain because of the neurocortex, blah, blah, blah. Neurocortex. But my neurocortex was shut down.
Yeah.
And this is what really was the key thing for him. His neurocortex was shut down. So everything he was telling all these other people was due to your neurocortex that were having these experiences, whatever. So he has this experience, or what he sees as the Map of Heaven. And he talks about the experience. And of course, his colleagues are there like, yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just byproduct of the brain, creating these things. But it just didn't make sense to him since,
you need that part of the brain to create the byproduct. And it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So here we have somebody who was very staunch in their belief of the sciences and how almost these two things could not exist in the same plane of reality, so to speak.
Yeah. And you hear that a lot. I mean, there are many scientists out there that are not willing to hear anything about consciousness and what that means because it just doesn't fit in.
Not only just that, consciousness, spirituality, your faith is your faith, but science is over here. Excuse me. So we have some of that still. And, I think where that gap is getting smaller.
Mhm.
but it still exists. And why does it exist? Once again, because of this conditioning that we've had throughout our lives, that science and our spirituality are somehow different
Mhm.
and they're somehow not related. The amount of time you will hear people say, well, I didn't believe that until it happened to me. Oh my God, I'm a believer now.
Yeah.
But why is it that we are so afraid of having the conversation, or we will discount somebody else's experience? And I think sometimes it's because it makes us uncomfortable and it makes us then have to question the things that we have believed for so long.
Yeah.
And if that becomes, well, if that's not true, then what else in my life is not true?
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of times if people share something that we just can't explain, like you said, we're not comfortable with it. We'd rather just not try to deal with it at all.
And so he goes on this quest to bridge that gap and to talk and to find out all of these people across the world who have had these experiences, who have been discounted,
Yeah.
and starting to understand that what we perceive and what we know may not be what we perceive and what we know.
Yeah.
And that kind of scariness.
So as I mentioned, heart coherence. What is that? A coherent heart is a physiological state of harmony, order, and synchronization between the heart, brain, and nervous system. This is something that is vital for growth and development of our spiritual understanding. Right now, so much of the time, people are living in survival mode, anxious and stressed out over life situations.
And even in that, it talked about what? The three things, but it's contained in one body.
Yes.
So it's not like sitting there saying, if my heart is here and my brain is here, and this is my logic, and this is my neuroscience or my science brain, that it's still contained in one body.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's contained in one body, why can we not entertain the idea that they can coexist and that they can complement each other and that they can teach us something?
And that they can be in alignment and be at peace.
And I think when they're not in alignment, we don't have that cohesiveness. We don't have that heart-centered, that place where we feel grounded and complete in a way. Because oftentimes I think we're having this competition even within ourselves of my heart tells me this, but my brain tells me this, or science tells me this, but I kind of believe this. And I know it might be off the beaten path, but it resonates with me, but I should believe that because science, do you see what I mean? This internal dialogue. Not no wonder we're tired all the time.
Exactly. Well, we, constantly second guess ourselves. So it seems difficult
Oh, absolutely.
to make sense of it all.
I think the cool thing is that there's more and more work being put into these things.
There is. This is why it's imperative that we start to understand the relationship between science and spirituality, along with other pieces of information that we can use as guideposts in our endeavor to deepen our understanding of who we are, why we're here, and where we're going. Some recent studies are challenging the fundamental assumptions that we have held about reality by suggesting that our reality may be a construct of our consciousness, which is governed by quantum rules. Quantum physics, of course, being the study of matter and energy at the most fundamental level. We know that everything is made of energy. We are energy. And that within itself means that we have influence energetically to change frequencies and be intentional with what we do and the recreation of society in a way that benefits all.
And we will see that. So our thoughts become our reality in a way. And if you think about it, if I have a thought, and what happens is our brain then goes to create multiple thoughts in that same arena in order to create the reality that it thinks we want to have.
Well, exactly.
So we are doing it every day, but we don't understand that on a quantum physics way and in a science way, that this is forming our reality. And so if I'm having a bad day, and then I sit there and don't address my brain and just stay in that place, then what my brain does is it goes and it finds all those moments that were bad. And then what you'll notice is your brain starts to do that. And then so it kind of justifies the bad day. So it's helping to create and sustain the reality of my bad day.
More of the same.
Yes. But if I sit there and say, I'm not going to have a bad day. There's so much great going on in the world. Then the brain goes, ouch. Okay, wait, now there's so much great in the world. So then it works to create that reality. It's going to answer whatever we put in it. So in essence, are we not creating that reality?
Well, absolutely. When you think about it, nothing out here in this world exists without it was a thought first.
Yes. When we talk and, when you get into philosophy, and I really love philosophy because it really kind of makes you think and it whacks your brain out a little bit. But, it's that saying, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? The answer is no, unless somebody is there to experience the sound. Does that make sense? When you do that, and I remember doing this in philosophy, and I was there like, oh, well, this is blowing my mind. But even like, if I'm in this room, does the other rooms really exist? No, in my reality, I will create the other rooms, but they really don't exist because I'm not seeing them. Doesn't that just blow your mind to think about just what our brain is capable of? And it's not just the brain, it's the brain in conjunction with the consciousness. The consciousness, the energy is truly where a lot of this is at. And this is the place we are not exploring.
Exactly.
But why do you think that is?
Well, I think that it scares people to some degree, but I think that we have to get comfortable with the unknown. I think therein lies our flexibility to be able to understand more. But I think that at the beginning of all of this, people react out of fear because think they have it all compartmentalized, all neat, that how things work. And if I don't know how things work, what am I doing? But I think it's interesting because there are a lot of studies that are happening now that is helping us to have a better picture. Research from the Monroe Institute called the Gateway Experience. This aims to expand consciousness and enhance self-awareness. It utilizes audio techniques such as binaural beats to facilitate altered states of consciousness. Participants engage in guided meditations to access deeper levels of awareness and explore non-physical realities. The program emphasizes personal growth, emotional healing, and spiritual exploration. It encourages individuals to develop their intuitive abilities and enhance problem-solving skills. The experience is often described as a journey into expanded perception and understanding of the self and the universe.
So it's kind of interesting to me because they're using science. So the binaural beats, they figured out binaural beats, that sound affects the way in which your brain, it still goes through your brain on that conscious level, but then on the subconscious or the consciousness is where you're having the experience.
Yeah.
And I think when we do meditation, I always think it's very fascinating when you do meditation because when you're meditating and then you'll have images and it's like sometimes the images maybe, I don't know what those images are. Stuff just comes to you and it can be colors, it can be whatever, but it doesn't always have you don't always have a conscious understanding of what's coming to you. But I find that oftentimes somewhere down the line, that plays out in a way. It's kind of fascinating.
It's really fascinating. I think so because like when I'm doing meditation, sometimes when I'm finished, I can't even verbalize what exactly I've experienced or what I've seen. Some of it is not even in my memory at that moment. But as I'm going along in life, some of those things will come back to me. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even remember.
One of the things we'll often say is, I feel like I've been on a trip somewhere and I don't know where or what it was, but it'll.
Well, yeah.
It's the most fascinating thing because you're getting into that consciousness and you're getting into energy. So it transcends our physical being.
And it really does almost feel like you've been gone somewhere for a while.
I always find people who can do out of body stuff or things like that, which I don't think science can explain, but we have lots of cases of where people can talk about that out of body experience and they can have validity to it when they say something about in the room and the person says, wait, you were not supposed to be able to see that or whatever, but you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that just shows you that consciousness is so much bigger and so much more expansive of who we are.
Well, and it encompasses so much more than what our thinking brain is capable of, because it lives in the body and there's memory in the body, and we're not paying attention, but there's a lot going on with us. We're so fixated on the thinking a lot of the time.
Because we've been taught to be cerebral.
Mm-hmm.
I think from the time children are little, we teach them to go to here. We are not teaching them about paying attention to their bodies. We're not teaching them to pay attention to the emotion. Where does the emotion come from? We're not teaching them to focus on the heart.
Mm-hmm.
What is the heart telling you?
And I think we start doing that right when we were talking about that in the last episode, is that children start to lose that. But prior to that, I think they're very much in touch with it. That ability to imagine and to have that, it's a carefree feeling within them that they don't have to try to live within the confines of reality that we put on.
They're really creating a construct for themselves.
Yeah.
And, I think it's interesting because when you hear those stories of those kids who have their imaginary friends,
Mm-hmm.
but then they go into detail of these imaginary friends and what they say and what they do. And, they're like, whoa, wait a minute. That's kind of a little deep or whatever. And so we don't know what they're seeing. We don't know what they're experiencing. But what we will tell them is, oh, that's not real.
Mm-hmm. But I wonder if we were really listening to them and had an open mind and didn't just shut that down and say that, that isn't real or whatever, what else would they remember? What else would they explain? What else would they say to us that they're experiencing? I mean, I have absolutely no recollection of what my imaginary friend looked like, but I sure remember his name. I think it would be fascinating to know if we cultivated that and really helped kids to verbalize that, then what else would we learn?
And, I think it's fascinating because I think growing up, we had 160 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go out and be alone, even with that many siblings. It's hard to believe. But yeah, you could find a spot. But I remember just going out, and sometimes it's like there was a feeling, but you didn't know what it was. But it's not like you felt like you were alone, but you didn't feel like you were being watched. Very weird. We worked the earth. We were very much involved with that. And we talk about, and oftentimes in the native culture and stuff like that, the importance of earth, and it speaks to us.
Mm-hmm.
People, what do you mean the earth is speaking to you? No, the earth can't talk, but it does. Everything in nature speaks because, once again, as we just said, everything has an energy signal.
Yes.
And have you ever gone out and just touched a tree? Close your eyes, do almost like a form of meditation, but you touch the tree and you just feel it. It's like you can almost feel the moisture going up and down the tree because the moisture comes from the roots and travels up. And I remember seeing this thing, and it was a Native American thing, and it said, it's almost like if you touch the earth, you can feel its heartbeat.
Yeah.
And we now know this. We know that even in space, they say there was no sound in space.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know planets they each have their own sound.
Yeah.
And sound, and we're talking about the binaural, it's sound. We know sound is very much a part of this.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing more and more research being done into the piece of sound.
Yeah, definitely. And how it can be used in so many aspects, even in healing. I had seen one the other day that had to do with Alzheimer's. They believe that there's certain, I don't know if it was binaural beat or some sound that they can use that they were saying helps to clean up the plaque to help with Alzheimer's. Well, I think there are so many things that we can learn about sound and how it can be used to help us.
And when you think about sound, and when we're talking about spirituality, in sound is very big in spiritual growth and things like that. But Native Americans use drum and flutes.
Yeah.
The sound is part of that consciousness. And I think it's because sound has been around as long as consciousness. I think there is this relation, this long-standing, beautiful relationship that's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's paying attention to those things and understanding that we're all, and constantly we're talking about this connectedness. But energy is connected. We feel energy, whether we realize it or not. And of course, some people in science will be there like, well, though technically, I'm kidding, science people. This is the thing too, when we're talking about science, I'm going to do this real quick because I'm a little nerd. But when we're doing science, we have to remember to look at the science, to really look at it. Who's selling me something? And so one of the things I tell when I'm talking with people and they're telling me all this stuff, I'll say, okay, well, who funded the science? Who funded the study? Well, what do you mean? Was it so if I'm, say, the milk industry and I go fund you to show that milk is important, what are your findings going to be? If I give you $1 million, you're going to find what?
The health benefits of milk.
Yes. But when you have an independent study, what you will find is they don't have a buy-in either way. Mm-hmm. And those are the studies that I'm going to go look at more often.
And I think that's a really important aspect to look at because everybody's out there searching what is truth and all of that. Definitely go and look at who's providing this information.
It's about, we have to be willing to question what we think we know, mm-hmm. as Eben had to do. Mm-hmm. He had to question everything that he learned and knew and did for so many years. To talk about having the rug pulled out from underneath you to say, oh my God, there's something more. When we are looking at things, we have to be willing to invest in that. If I'm going to go say, oh, to you, oh yeah, this, and this, and you sit there and say, well, how do you know? And I say, oh, this study. Well, then you go look and you find out sometimes it's a bogus study. It never really happened. But you have to have a study that you can replicate. Mm-hmm. Okay? And in the replication of it, science is important in that it provides us information. Mm-hmm. That's all it's doing, is providing us information. And it's inferring something. Mm-hmm. And in science, everything is a theory until it is proven. It's not like science is lying to you. Mm-hmm. It's like today we get to see it in real time. So it looks very different than it did historically. Yeah. But we have to be willing to look at the science. We have to be willing to question our faith, mm-hmm. where our spirituality is, our religion. We have to be willing to question not only science, but these things as well. Yeah. And we have to be willing to have those conversations with people or listening to different ideas than what I know, because it is only in doing that we get that growth. Exactly. We can't be afraid, because it is fear that is going to keep us in this same box that we have been in for way, way too long. Yeah.
Evidence is building that consciousness is not merely a side effect of neural activity, but that it forms the very foundation of reality itself. We can take notes from many different disciplines of study to help us better understand our spiritual journey. If we are committed to improving our world, we have to be ambitious and learn to understand our own ability to discern what is truth. The way in which we do that is by gathering information from each of these fields of study. We may even look to religions for clarification in some instances. If we have faith that there is a higher power and that we are a part of that higher power, and that higher power wants us to feel rooted and grounded and whole and to embody compassion, then we can see that there is a consistent message throughout many religious faiths that we are to remember our humanity and our connection to source energy and to one another.
And I think that's the key thing, is to really be okay with the questioning.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm afraid to question, then I have to ask myself, what do I fear? And sometimes we just fear that unknown. We also fear, well, we go into this really heady place of, what if they're right and I was wrong? Nobody's right and wrong.
It's not about that. And the deepening of our understanding is bigger and more important than that anyway.
Exactly. But I think, once again, because we're stuck in these human constructs, these societal constructs that are created by humans.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we get so indoctrinated into it, it does become scary to try to break away from that.
And we can't get all of our answers from one thing. That's why I say, I mean, we have to look at the science, we have to look at the religions, we have to look at nature, like you were saying. I mean, you go out and when you commune with nature, you feel that groundedness, that there's a serenity that washes over you in that.
There very much is a spiritual connection.
Yes.
If you open it up and you go in with this open mind and this open heart, and when you are hiking and doing stuff like that, and I found that, like I said, when we were in Yellowstone, and we took this path, which I want you to know, they don't know how to do miles, a quarter of a mile, a quarter of a mile, a quarter of a mile. I swear we went about 8 miles and it was still a quarter of a mile to the next thing. They lied. They need to check on that. Just a little side note there. But it was amazing because as we're going to, there was almost something magical about this particular hike.
Mm-hmm.
Just it, from the way the shadows came in to
all the colors,
there's the moss on the rocks, and I am telling you, there's just something about that particular path that, and we all three experienced it, just that connectedness.
You could only want to be present there. You you wouldn't want to go anywhere else in your mind. It was just so beautiful. And not just the beauty of it, but there was just this peacefulness to it.
There was a serenity. There was a warmth. There was an invitation to be present.
Yep.
And we've had other experiences like that, but that one in particular, for some reason, just, it was just that place where you knew there was a higher power and you were part of that higher power.
You were connected to it all.
You were being loved and nurtured by that higher power, and you felt like you belonged to everything.
Yeah.
And those are the things we're talking about, is to have those experiences where you are feeling that at that level. It's not your body. It's not your body that's experiencing this. It is the heart and the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
You are feeling it at that level.
When you make it a point to go and be in that stillness and experience that, it's the health benefits to you, I can't even explain.
And you know, Kauai has a lot of those places, and you can just pause and you can it just surrounds you.
Yeah.
We have those places here in Colorado.
Absolutely. Menacing
Falls in Michigan. They were magical. They exist. And when you can find those places and you can truly do that, what you will find is you start to know in here and in here that there is a higher power and your energy it's connected.
It's connected.
But not only the higher power, but you will feel that connectedness to everything around you.
Mhm.
And that's what we're talking about. And does it happen all the time? No, I wish it would.
No, but the more that you do
Do
that,
it.
and the more that you go then and you're doing your life, it plays out.
Yes.
There is that heart coherence
Mm-hmm.
that still plays out even as you're doing the mundane.
Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about these things, having immense gratitude
Yes.
that we've been able to experience these things.
Yep.
Because when you experience it and then when you share it with others, there is something even about that you're making that connection with those people also to share that experience. So that's what we're talking about.
And gratitude of that takes it to the next level.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that you heard something that you liked and that resonated with you. You can find us at spinningthelightpodcast.com. We would love for you to subscribe to our website. You'll receive an email whenever we have a new episode. You can also find us on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and of course, wherever you get your podcasts, listen in. We appreciate it. Subscribe, share. I hope that you have enjoyed the conversation as much as we have.
And also, we're asking people, engage with this.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know your thoughts. Let us know about your experiences. All of those things. We love engagement. And we've said this over and over again. We are really working to build a community here. Something that is about us knowing people and sharing these experiences and stuff. So that's what's really important as well. And of course, Worlds of Wonder by Spinning the Light, which is our YouTube channel. And that's where our outer world meets our inner world, and just those experiences that we have and why they're important and how that connection and all of that really matters to us and to everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope you all have a really great week, and we will be back. Bye.
Bye.